Hey guys, it's Chris Mincolla with the Mincolla Group over at West USA Realty, and I'm doing our weekly housing market update. And I'm going to share my screen here with you. We've got some really good stuff. We're going to talk about when's the best time to sell. We're going to talk about rates, what's going on with Iran, and how that's going to impact it. We're going to talk about the Federal Reserve meeting today, and also some new rules and regulations coming out from the White House as well as Congress. So let's jump right in to a screen here. And okay, hopefully you're seeing the right one here. I'm kind of on the road today, guys, so bear with me. Okay, let me get this thing out of the way. All right, cool. That's more better. All right, so President Trump put out he removes regulatory barriers to affordable home construction. Basically, it's getting rid of a lot of regulations to bring down the cost, whether they be environmental regulations. I mean, some of these crazy green type policies where, if there's a little standing puddle somewhere, it's the end of the world and we've got to spend thousands of dollars to take care of that, which is actually kind of a real example. But without getting into all that, just kind of jumping down here, getting rid of some of the barriers on building codes, permitting, things like that. It says building codes that can add more than $30,000 in the cost of construction, according to analysis by Council of Economic Advisors. In 2021, on average, regulations imposed by government at all levels added more than $90,000 to the final price of a new single family home. Okay. One of the other things too is this. I wanted to kind of give you this too. One of the other things they're working on, kind of to summarize some of this without getting into all the regulations they're getting rid of, but basically permitting codes and environmental stuff is being done away with. That's unnecessary nonsense. Just for local, and this will include down to the local level. And really, that's kind of where a lot of this happens, where you're paying more for the building and stuff too. So it's super important that that's happening. Also, new executive order on mortgages. The Trump administration has issued an order aimed at reducing regulatory burdens on community banks to increase access to mortgage credit. We lost about half the banks local banks that used to be out there. Some of the amounts of money that they have to have in reserves, things like that are going to be going away. So the goal is to modernize, also to modernize documentation requirements, potentially leveraging AI and technology to speed up the lending process and lower rates for home buyers. So, and when it comes to the builder sentiment right now, in the last report, according to the National Association of Home Builders, uh, for their index, the builder confidence for March rose slightly to 38, but remains below the neutral 50 level. Traffic is low at 25, prompting 30% of builders to cut prices and offer rate cut incentives, closing costs to entice buyers. And it's super important because if we want affordability in homes, not only do we need to get away from a lot of these burdensome regulations, need to make it a little ease and make it more accessible for people to get their home loans. Some of this AI technology will help speed some of that up and take away some of that cost and filter that out. But this is definitely a good thing because a lot of these regulations can basically come out to about 25% of the building costs overall. So this is a step in the right direction. Let's just put it that way. Then we have Congress also with their bill helping alongside this to kind of codify some of this so that we really make sure that this is going to be a long-term solution with a lot of the regulatory burdens that are out there. So that should help to also increase supply from the builders, increase their confidence. And another big part of that's going to be getting rates down because they have to borrow money in order to, build these houses in most cases. So all this in tandem is definitely headed in the right direction, the right trend lines that we want to see. Um, Next thing I wanted to talk about, so that's good news because more supply, definitely gives people more options, and it also helps to, um, slow down any out of control costs in home prices and prices going up faster than they need to be. It's a bigger problem in the Northeast than it is out here in the West or in the South. But anyways. Looking at Realtor.com here, they've got a thing out that says, "Don't miss the Goldilocks window. The best week to sell your home is almost here." And they're coming in, again, it could vary a little bit from your area, depending on when school lets out and everything, depending on what kind of market you're in. Like for us, Sun City can be, definitely a little bit earlier in the game for the year. But the best time according to Realtor.com, is April 12th to April 18th, the best time to sell your home. And what does that mean, best time? Well, when more buyers are out there looking at homes to get more money out of the sale of your home because you could even run into multiple offer situations, more competition out there for buyers, which is good for trying to sell your home. Now, obviously, if you're selling 70% of the time, or give or take 70 to 80% of the time, sellers are also buyers. So then you're out there competing at that same time too. But that also means that you want to kind of be out there ahead of the curve a little bit. So, if it's the best time to sell your home is in April, you need to actually list your home a little bit earlier so it can go under contract and actually close. So those kind of trend lines kind of tell us, 30 to 90 days basically in kind of a balanced market is what you'd be looking at as far as getting under contract, you know, and then getting through the escrow period and actually closing. So you definitely would you want to start that process a little bit earlier if possible. Zillow came out with their own thing. This was just in the last 24 hours for both of these reports. Best time to list your home, sellers could earn 6,000 more, $6,000 more in listing in late May. Okay, that this is what their report says. So they're kind of maybe a month off from each other, but basically April, May-ish. Again, you kind of want to be a little bit ahead of that if you want to actually close during these periods when people are out there looking. But their analysis showed from their real-time data that in 2025, home sales finds that homes listed in the last 2 weeks of May sold for 1.7% more nationwide, or about $6,000 than a typical US home. In higher priced markets, the premium climbs much higher, reaching $25,000 to more than $50,000. So that's kind of their report. That gives you an idea of the best time to sell. And if you look at even our local MLS here, just to give you a quick idea, you can kind of see, our school lets out a little bit earlier in the year than back east, but you can kind of see those trade lines where it kind of goes up and down, up and back up and down, over the those time periods where it's price per square foot sold listings, where that actually is the case. It kind of goes up and down every year. And at the end of the year, they always say prices drop. Well, it's kind of a seasonal thing. It's not, but it gets clicks. Okay. But anyway, that kind of gives you an idea. Spring market, nothing really new there, but they come out with this every year. But just thought I'd share that with you. Um, One other thing I wanted to show you was February 2026 rental report. National median asking rents hit 4-year low. So this is what we were talking about last week, where I showed you the rental chart over the last couple of years and how the Federal Reserve is way behind the curve when it comes to shelter costs, and shelter costs make up a third of the inflation report, which means when it comes to inflation, which their dual mandate is inflation and full employment, right? And their target for inflation is the made up number of 2% from New Zealand that comes out of New Zealand, which we always like to point out. But suffice to say, just kind of getting to the point here, rent declined again is now 5.1% below the 2022 peak. So we can see these rent declines. this is a big part, again, of inflation, which affects the 10-year treasury, which can affect mortgage rates. Okay. And Jerome Powell just started mentioning this about 2 meetings ago. So again, we know rents have been in decline according to this article for like 30 months, 30 months. So about 2.5 years, they've been in the decline. And if we look at Phoenix in particular, um, our rental prices have actually dropped since June of 2022, a minus 4.4%. Okay. So they've dropped that whole rate that was going, on that upward curve came to, been coming down the last 30 months. And they're just looking at very old data. It takes them basically a year to 2 years to catch up with it, just because they're using these outdated equated models. I mention this all the time. It's called owner's equivalent rent. Makes up a third of the inflation metric, and the way they calculate it is goes back to the 1980s, which there were a lot of good things in the 80s, but we have real-time data now for this stuff with MLSs and sites like Realtor.com, Zillow, Cotality that can bring this stuff to the now, and that's why I like to track with Trueflation, which gives us a reading closer to 1%. Right now. It actually has gone up a little bit. And the big thing to think about when we talk about inflation, really quick, is this whole Iran thing. It certainly deals with not just that we get hardly any oil from Iran. It's like I think it's under 3%. But it's tied in with the global market. So it affects fertilizer, food, all kinds of stuff, diesel fuel, which of course, dealing with, fertilizer and transporting of goods, price of everything goes up. So that, we were talking about this before. Today is March 18th. If this thing goes on beyond the 21st, that's when the real costs can start filtering in. Not that they already haven't, but can start filtering in a big, what'll feel like more of a sustained period of time, and prices continuing to go up. So with this conflict, hopefully it'll be over with sooner rather than later. If it's over, um, some speculate it may be over by the middle of next week. With getting things through the Strait of Hormuz. So we'll kind of see how that goes, because that's the big thing as far as that goes. So we'll see how that all goes, and if they blow up as President Trump likes to call it, the pipes for getting their oil out of Iran. Now, Saudi Arabia is boosting their supply, is what I heard this morning. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, there's a quick rundown on that. But yeah, if this thing goes past the 21st, then we're going to see you know, some people starting to scream bloody murder, which a lot of people already are with gas prices because of the global index. But anyway, 10-year Treasury, which runs hand in hand with the inflation, or I'm sorry, with the mortgage rates. 10-year Treasury is usually about 1.6 to 1.8% difference with where we are with our 30-year mortgage rate and the average across the country. Right now, today, we're at 4.2 on this. Here's what it's been doing. What is this stupid thing in the way? Okay. Um, Here's what it's been doing in the last week. It's actually down a little bit today. And in the last month, we can see that trend line's definitely gone up because of what's going on. So, what does that mean for our mortgage rates? Well, today we are at 6 right now. The average 30-year fixed conventional across the country is 6.31%. Now, through our mortgage broker, right now the fixed rate on a conventional is 5.6. So usually going to be 100 basis points lower, and it just comes down to the fees and pricing that they're basically charging you. So you can get a lower rate right now on a fixed rate right out of the box. If you're out there looking for homes, plus we can negotiate in a lot of cases that the seller pay some concessions towards your rate being bought down. Also, a lot of new builds, you can get, anywhere from, 3-4% right now. I've seen even as low as 1.99%. So those are just some options for you, just so you're aware of it. And Then we also have the ARM products that are available right now that are super popular. 5-year ARMs for conventional is starting at 5.0% right now today, and FHA is 4.5, VA 4.5. So those are good for 5 years. After that, they can fluctuate. And depending on the program that you go with, it could fluctuate once a year. It could fluctuate, maybe a few times a year, but you can always refinance out of that if rates go down. So to a fixed rate. So it's nothing that you're, going to be locked into, so to speak. And just looking at the local numbers here, well, really quick before I get into that, the Fed meeting today, you know, what the Fed does with their Fed's fund rate does indirectly affect mortgage rates, but it's more the messaging. Are they going to be hawkish, dovish, or at a neutral stance? They feel, up to this point that they've kind of been heading to a neutral stance. I feel, again, because of that big marker making up a third of the inflation rate, also because the jobs numbers, the unemployment's not horrible, but the job starts have been terrible, and a lot of that economists agree has to do with the Fed fund rate because companies need to borrow capital in order to grow their businesses, pay more employees, give raises, do more production, all those sorts of things, and that's why they raised the rates after they said it was transitory, then it wasn't. That 8 days after he got a seat back, Jerome Powell said now it's not transitory. But anyway, they're meeting today. He should be coming out with his statement here in the next couple of hours. I think it's 2:30 Eastern time. And expect no change in the Fed rate. And we'll have to see what he has to say, but we're definitely not expecting anything to move there. It'll probably be just kick the can down the road, see how things go, type of thing. But they're going to monitor what's happening, but they're already behind. We know that from just looking at those rental prices. Looking at the local data here in the greater Phoenix area, we're at 80 days closed days on market, a 4.22 month supply. Now, if we get below that number, 4, we'll be back into a seller's market. Okay. But we're not there yet. And right now, the absorption rate is 23%, which is actually not too bad. And the average list price is 787,000. Average sales price is 633,000. List to sales price ratio is 97.45. So sellers are giving up about 2.5% of their list price in either price reduction or incentives, whether it be closing costs or buying down the rate for people. Active properties, properties that are going active, went up 0.5% just in the last week. We're at just over 26,000 homes on the market. Pending sales are actually up 2.7%. So that's good. Properties going under contract. That tells us there's more buyers getting into the market. Right now, we've got just over 5,000 when this came out on Monday. Jump back into the market. Now, if that number reaches 6, that's when we'll see this number here. Pending sales goes to 6. We'll see that number on month supply come down unless we just get some huge influx of homes. But if that number hits 6, expect us to be into a mild seller's advantage there. Closed units is up 1.7%. So those things are all heading in the right direction. We're still getting a little bit more supply in order to give people options, keep prices at bay, and those sorts of things. And then we look at all the price ranges here and the days on market and the percentage changes. Just a change a little bit down as far as properties under 200,000 and between that 200 or 2 million and 300,000 mark, just down 0.14%. And we look at most of the homes are listed at 66.05% under 600,000. 600 to a million is at 19.13%, and 1 million plus is at 14.82% on that index. And if we look into and dig into the numbers a little bit more, year over year, we can see that we've got a little bit less inventory than we did last year right now. If we go year over year at the same time, the under contracts are up. Last year it was 25,630. Right now we're at 26,280 as far as the active properties. And properties that are under contract, we can see we're up a little bit from the week over week, and year over year we're up about another 500 more uh, properties going under contract. So we got more buyers out there. Not a huge number, but definitely a step in the right direction. And the same thing for closed properties. We're up over last year, and so we're all this is definitely telling us we're trending in the right direction as far as those points are concerned. Looking at the Cromford Market Index right now, with their algorithm, they're telling us we are in a buyer's market. Anything under 90 is a buyer's market. Anything over 110 is a seller's market. So the overall index right now is at 82. The supply is 104. Okay, so that's about 4% over that middle range. And then our demand right now is at 86, which is down far as 100 is concerned, being right in the middle. Tells us we're about 14% lower than we want to be, 14 points lower than we want to be on that. If we look at the areas around the valley, let me make sure I've got this set up right for you. Okay. So if we look at the areas around the valley, Chandler right now at 85286, that's coming in a hot range, as well as Tempe for 85284. Chandler 85226 is in a hotter range. That's really heating up. If you got a property you're going to be listing in that area, you're going to be killing it. Levine right now is in a hot area. These are properties, again, this is what's active versus what's under contract, and how many properties are going under contract at any given time. Right now, Levine 85339, that's a hot area, as well as Tolleson 85353, that zip code. Phoenix 85035 is a hot area, along with Glendale 85303. 85029 is a hot area of Phoenix. So is 85028. And then 85053 in Phoenix is a hot area. 85024 and Glendale 85310. Those are all hot areas, guys. So we're seeing more hot to warm. Even got this hotter area, which we haven't seen that in a while. So a lot of these other areas around the valley are hotter. There's a few cold areas still out in Litchfield Park, and some of the areas right here, right in the middle of Paradise Valley, and middle of Phoenix. But things are starting to getting warm to hot, guys. So that's always a good sign for the market. But if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach out anytime. We'd love to be able to help you with any of your real estate questions. We'd love to be able to come out to your property, even if you're not sure if you're ready to sell yet or not. We could, go over what it would look like to sell right now, kind of break it down to you, for you, look at the updates you've done. And then we could kind of break down what it would look like to sell now, versus what you owe on the property, what you'd be walking away with. If you're thinking about buying, we've got a great mortgage broker, like I mentioned before, Andrew Fisher over at Semperfi Home Loans, who get you set up with those fantastic rates. So feel free to reach out anytime, guys, if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.